audience, so I'm just gonna introduce that I've been taking a speech class this semester at HTC, and this is my research persuasive speech. And so it's going to be on whether or not Hawaii should ban plastic bottles, or I was thinking actually just plastic in general. Okay, so plastic is everywhere. Virtually every piece of plastic that was ever made is still like on this earth somewhere, as an exception to the ones that have been incinerated. Okay, so 50% of plastics were used once, like only once, and then we just throw it away, so a one-use type of thing. And we currently recover only 5% of plastics that we produce. And plastics account for around 10% of the total waste that we generate in the world. Here's a little outline of the things I'm going to be going through in my speech. So, should Hawaii ban plastic bottles is what my main topic was. And so, this whole speech you're going to be hearing about like benefits and negative effects of plastic. And I actually did a interview with a professor here. Her name is Michelle Sui, and she gave me a lot of information about the business side of it as well as environmental side to it. So all over the world, plastic has become a large issue. Why? Because plastic is everywhere. It's always being produced, like massively produced, and it's not biodegradable. And the question is, why isn't the problem of plastic pollution going away if we're recycling it? And the whole thing is that we're not really recycling it. This is kind of a chart of what the process of recycling. So actually in Hawaii, before we even start the process, like at the pickup process, we usually pick up the plastics, and then after we pick up the plastics, it gets stored into a warehouse, and usually it just ends up staying at the warehouse space because in Hawaii we don't have the capability of recycling a lot of the plastics that we want to recycle, so we have to send it away on ships. And later along the line is where we get the money to actually ship it away. So if people don't buy the product, which a lot of people don't buy the product, then we don't have money to ship it away. So we pick up, we store it in a warehouse, and then plastic is inspected and sorted. And a lot of the times when it's in the sorting phase, a lot of the plastic cannot be reused because it's like adhered to different types of materials like metals or whatnot. So I think 5% of the plastic in like one product is the only amount that we can recycle from the product. After that, it moves along to being cleaned, and then it's chemically tested to see what specific type of plastic it is, because there's many different plastics, and then it's resorted again, packaged and made into new products, and then we buy it or whatnot. So what is the cost of recycling? High Five Economics say that according to the Department of Health Statistics, the state of Hawaii has been collecting about $55 million dollars a year from 6 cents added to each beverage container at the point of sale, and distributing from $49 million to $63 million. Only 27% of plastics produced are actually recycled here in Hawaii. So what happens is that if it's not recycled, it's usually stored, or it will just go into a landfill. And this is kind of like a breakdown of what Oahu's waste cost is. So for landfills for recycling and reuse composite, in 2013 we spent about $510,000. We also burn waste, and that costs $727,000. And then the residue from the burning gets put into landfills, and that's $145,000. And then total that we spend altogether is $190,000. so, like I said, a lot of the products that, or a lot of the raw plastics that we have here in Hawaii, we can't recycle ourselves, so we have to ship it away to either the mainland or China. So it costs $11.3 billion to export raw recycling plastic to China, and it is 2,500 miles to Asia or to the mainland, and like that added journey adds on to the cost of carbon footprinting. So, how does plastic affect the world? The cost of plastic production is cheap, so there's some statistics on there, but basically lower labor, more people working in factories or machines, and just mass production is just cheaper for us to do. The plastic industry is the third largest manufacturing industry in the United States, and it employs over 88,000 people, and it creates more than $380 billion annually with shipments. Workers and total shipment goes to $465 billion, and there are more than 16,200 plastic facilities in the United States. Recycling creates jobs for people. Recycling produce products is better for in Hawaii, like our local businesses, because we can create more businesses for recycling. According to the Department of Labor and Industrial Relations, recycling will create about 3,000 full-time jobs statewide, and local economic development will begin and continue to flourish. Plastic is too hard to recycle, and that's one of the biggest problems about plastic. The reason why it's so hard to recycle is because there's many different types of plastics, and plastic has to be melted down at a specific point. If it's too high, the plastic will just singe, so it won't be able to be recycled. Here's just like a list of the different types of plastics, and I've starred the ones that are the safest for us to use. So 2, 4, and 5, and these are like the more flimsier types of plastics. These are the easiest ones to recycle. Plastic actually kills marine life. There's a lot of pictures you can see of like the top right is top left is where there's a lot of rubbish on the beaches, and then the rubbish actually gets into the ocean, and down at the bottom there's a picture of a fish, and I don't think you can see it, but there's little pieces of plastic in the fish because the fish actually confused it for food and whatnot, so that just kills the fish alone. And then we have like seals and whatnot, like the baggages get caught around their necks and they suffocate. Whales, if they have a plastic bag like on their blowhole, they actually cannot go down into the water because it's blocking their air passageways. So if they can't go down, they'll eventually not be able to get food for themselves, and they'll starve to death. And then plastic pollution wreaks havoc on marine ecosystems. So actually, there is a woman that did a study on this thing, or this place called the Garbage Island, and it's actually just like a place in the middle of the ocean with a whole bunch of like trash. It just accumulates together, and they found that a lot of fish and plankton and just like marine animals actually come to this island, and they adapt to this different type of environment, which is not what they're used to. So like it changes the whole ecosystem. And then plastic pollution also threatens human health. So you can see that when you burn plastic, it gives off like toxic like chemicals into the air. So there's air pollution, and then all of that can go into like nerve damage, cancer risk, nausea. Also the plastic, if it's heated, it can give off, if just touching it, it will like sink into your skin, so you can have skin irritation. And then there's also water pollution, because a lot of the world's plastic gets put into rivers and oceans and streams. And then there's just soil contamination. So these are some people who study the topic. This is Captain Charles Moore. This is actually the first choice person that I actually wanted to interview. He's away on a ship studying. So what he does is he goes around and he does voyages with students, or he employs a lot of people, and they study plastic waste in the ocean and its effects mainly on marine life. And when I was in my interview with Michelle, she told me that he actually gets people onto a boat, like students, and he has them sit near the ocean on the boat, and he has them count every piece of plastic that goes by, in like every second, minute, and so on. And I think the longest amount of time between plastics was 3 seconds. This is Chris Jordan. He's actually like an apprentice of Captain Charles Moore. He studied with Charles Moore and found out like statistics about plastic waste, and not just plastic waste. He also goes out into like other world issues. But this is a piece of art that he created, and then when you zoom into it, like I kind of zoomed in right here in the top right there. That's what it looks like when you zoom into it. So that depicts 2.4 million pieces of plastic. So in this whole picture, there's 2.4 million pieces of plastic that create this whole image, and that's the estimated number of pounds of plastic pollution that enters the world's oceans every hour. And then this is the 5 gyres, another person that Michelle kind of referred me to and told me to like browse their website. It's an organization that studies like plastic buildup in the ocean in all the different types in all the oceans. So there's 5, and they're called gyres. That's why they're called the 5 gyres. And then it's basically like the currents in the water kind of like turn like this, so it just like it builds up where it turns. And then lastly, I watched a video called Plastic Paradise, the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, and this is Angela's son, and what she's doing is she went around the world, like all over the world, not just in Hawaii, and she found out like the truth about the plastic garbage patch. And I think the coolest thing that I found in this documentary was that she found a piece of plastic, a plastic bottle, and there's a note in it, and it had a date of when the note was put into it, which was about 50 years ago. So it just really shows you like how long plastic will be on this earth, like it's not biodegradable. So there are different alternatives to plastic. One of the most important or the most sought out alternative is just glass, because glass can be recycled like 100%. There's also bio-based plastics and thermal-based films. And then with these different types of plastics, there is an issue, and the issue is that they're so costly. And so like you don't want to spend a lot of money on this new product when you can just mass produce like a whole bunch of them and pay less, right? So actually, like I came up with like a solution, and me and Michelle talked about the solution, which would be like to talk to more people and get them more involved in knowing what plastic can do to the world, because the more people know, the more that they'll buy this expensive product, and the more they buy this expensive product, the more cheaper the product will become, because there will be more demand. So plastic is a deadly predator to the environment. On the other hand, plastic is also a wonderful thing for business aspect. When it comes down to deciding what is right and what is wrong with the plastic production, it just depends on where you stand. Are you more supporting a healthier and cleaner environment, or are stronger economy. The choice is yours. Okay, thank you all for watching.
Good job.